Welcome back to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. On this episode, I sit down with Nick Spector, a Toronto-based street photographer whose work moves fluidly between genres, including fashion, portraiture, documentary, corporate, and weddings, but finds its deepest expression on the streets. After more than a decade working as a semi-professional photographer, Nick's street practice has become a space for challenge, curiosity, and self-exploration. It's where he strips things back, follows instincts, and allows the work to ask the harder questions. Nick's street photography has been exhibited in group shows across Toronto and internationally, and was recently shown as part of the inaugural Montreal Street Photography Festival. His work has also been published in Fine Ranger magazine and Low Quality Film Society's Black and White and The Street issue. This past year, Nick self-published his first zine, Only Child, making an important step in taking ownership of his voice and his output. In February 2026, he'll be releasing a new project, Sketchbook Japan, a zine created from images made during a 2-week trip to Japan in October 2025. This was Nick's 5th visit to Japan, and the project reflects what happens when you return to a place with fresh eyes. Sketchbook Japan is less about documenting a destination and more about the process, about how repetition and presence can open new creative doors. In this conversation, Nick and I talk about street photography as a personal practice, the role of self-publishing, returning to the same place over time, and how growth often comes from staying with work long enough to let it change you. Now let's get to the show.
So my name is Nick Spector. I'm a street photographer based in Toronto, Canada. I've been shooting and doing photography in some form for 15 years now. I studied journalism at Toronto Metropolitan University. I graduated in 2012. And somewhere between 3rd year and 4th year, that's when I found photography as an outlet or an interest. I signed up without having a camera or knowing how to do photography. I signed up for a 7-day photojournalism workshop in Prague. And because TMU has a pretty good journalism program and they're renowned for their journalism program, I got in with just on spec with no portfolio or anything like that. So I was like, okay, well, this is real now. So I approached the photojournalism prof at TMU at the time and said, hey, I got into this workshop. What camera should I buy? And he said, well, slow down. What do you know about photography? And deer in the headlights expression. And he said, well, we can't have you going to this workshop representing our university without having any knowledge about photography. So he took the time to mentor me one-on-one for a couple months before I left. The prof's name is Peter Bragg. He's pretty well-renowned photojournalist in his own right. He holds the Order of Canada and a whole bunch of other accolades. So that was my first teacher. And
Wow.
Yeah, so I learned a few things before I even touched a camera. He taught me all the basics about exposure and all that stuff, the technical side of things and composition. And I got my first camera and went to Prague and a few other places in Europe, and it was overall a success. I think it was a good experience. I came back and showed him some of the pictures, and he said, yeah, you're well on your way, and took his advanced photojournalism course in my last year of university. And that was sort of the entryway to it. Then between, I guess, the graduation, the summer after I graduated university, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't want to go into the world of journalism. It was all that was being offered were unpaid internships. And I've been working at my family business since I was tall enough to reach the cash register. So the idea of doing an unpaid internship was, you kind of are a little skeptical of that. And there's no guarantee on the other side of having any gainful employment. It's one of those, work for us for 6 months, and if we like you, then maybe we'll give you a paycheck. So it wasn't something that I was passionate enough about to go down that path. So I was lost, I guess, professionally. I was studying for the LSATs and thought I could be a lawyer, and maybe I could have been, but the end of that summer, I get a phone call from Peter, and I missed the call. He left a message saying, "Hey, I was supposed to do this work with this charity. They're doing a climb up Mount Kilimanjaro. I've hurt myself. Is that something you'd be interested in?" And I sort of put the phone down and looked at my friends and was like, I just got the strangest call. So something about Mount Kilimanjaro, I better call him back. So I called him back and he gave me the details. And I mean, this was a long time ago, so I don't really remember if there was an interview process or how it happened, but the charity that was doing it ended up choosing me to be their photographer for this climb. So my first official assignment was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And yeah, that was a pretty big learning experience. That was really the ultimate fake it till you make it. And there's, that you're in such a crazy place that of course the photos you get are going to be picturesque, if nothing else. I think there's things I would do differently now, but yeah, I mean, everyone asks, was it really hard to do it? And it's a hike for most of it. For most of it, it's a fairly decent hike. I wouldn't, you're not scaling walls or anything, but it's a lot of walking. And when you're the photographer, you're also going from the front to the back of that procession of people and having to take their photos. So I tell myself, and whether this is true or not, I don't know, I tell myself that I climbed that mountain 1.5 times. The last day is really the hardest, where they're waking you up at 4 a.m. and having you get to the summit for sunrise. And I'm up there with like camera gear and everything and trying to strategize battery life because it's freezing up there. And so there's nowhere to really charge anything. So you're rationing your batteries as you go through this 6-day climb. And we did the summit. We got to the summit. I took a group photo and we're walking back from the summit, and 2 people that were in our group were still making their way to the summit. And so I saw them and going towards the summit, and I was like, I have to turn around and go take their picture, don't I? I have to go back to the summit again and do this all over again. And there's a photo of me out there somewhere where my beard is all frozen over from being up there so long. But I got everybody's photo, and yeah, that was my first official assignment. I came back from that, and from there, I did a lot of odd job freelance kind of, corporate and events, a couple weddings, just any sort of freelance thing I could get my hands on. But ultimately, it wasn't something that was exciting me, and it wasn't something that I was really happy doing. And I mean, there's reasons for that beyond just the labor itself, but I put down the camera for a little while because it was like, this is why am I doing something that isn't making me happy? It's not. I'm fortunate enough, like I said, family business. It wasn't doing photography as my livelihood, so I took a break. And I'm someone where when I see my cameras collect dust for a while, I start to get really sad about it and feel like I've let a part of myself go that's really important. So I was at one of those points and thinking about what it was that I was drawn to with photography. And around that time, I picked up a book by the fashion photographer Helmut Newton and looked through that and thought, wow, these are really cool images. I really like this. Maybe I should see about fashion photography as something that I can explore, and maybe that's a way of expression that does fit me better. So I don't have to do anything. So I went all in on it. I took a course at OCAD called The Business of Fashion Photography, which was a great course, kind of gave me in and out of the behind the scenes, how shoots come together, all that stuff. And at the end of the course, I approached the instructor and said, so what do I do now? Because now I've done this. So how does one get into this world? And she said, usually you would assist for a photographer. That's kind of the best way to get your foot in the door in this industry. So I said, do you know anyone? And she said, well, one of our guest speakers that came for this course, her husband's a photographer. Why don't you get in touch with her and get in touch with him and see if they're looking for anyone? So I did that. I got in touch with a photographer named Chris Nichols. He's another sort of someone that I look up to and really respect the way that they do things there. And I assisted on a shoot on a trial basis, just to sort of see what I was like to work with, and was told by the studio manager, Clive, if Chris likes you, we'll have you back, but this is kind of a trial run. So the trial run was a pretty intense shoot. It was at an older ballroom at the King Edward Hotel, and I was in so far over my head. I don't know what any of the equipment was called. I didn't know what lights were, and so it was a bit of an eye-opening experience, but I just was like, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to be as sort of absorbent of any information I can get here as I can. And that got me in the door enough to be asked to be a recurring assistant. I couldn't do it full time, but anytime they needed an extra set of hands, they reached out and I would try to make it work. And I spent about 4 years assisting with Chris on and off, and another incredible experience. Learned a lot from him, learned a lot from his team. And, in sort of thinking about this story in preparation for this talk, I was kind of trying to distill what it was that I really learned from that experience beyond just like an insane amount of technical lighting ability. Those guys can light anything any way you want. And so aside from the technicals, I think the most important lesson I learned from that was a ruthless professionalism. They are so just make it work, figure it out. There's no excuse. And that really got hammered into me working with them in the best way possible. I also really appreciate something that I've learned from that experience was how to, as much as possible, separate my own feelings from the work I'm doing in order to assess it as objectively as possible. And that's not to say that I want to make photos that are emotionless, but to sort of look at a photo and say, does this photo work, or are you just emotionally attached to it because of the story behind it? And that's a struggle that a lot of us face. And I'd like to think that I'm a bit more capable of just making that cutthroat decision of, no, this one's for you and that's fine, but this is not for public consumption. This is not something that anyone else needs to see. So that was another really important lesson that I learned from those guys, because they will give you feedback on your work. They're also constantly looking at their own work and needing to work with whatever brand it is they're working with and make it work for them as well. So that was that experience. Ultimately, I think I honestly just burnt myself out in addition to assisting with them and my family's business. And, I'm also trying to build my own portfolio of fashion photography at the time. So I'm doing shoots on my own, which requires a lot of wrangling of people to do work for free and turning my apartment into a studio and learning on the fly and submitting work to publications. And there's just a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I don't think people that want to get into that world really appreciate until they're in it. So I honestly burnt myself out, and that sort of led us into COVID, which was conveniently enough, that led us into COVID.
Led you into a little bit of a low roll, not a lot of work coming in, not a lot of things. But man, talk about being thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
You didn't you didn't gradually go. You went, finish school, Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Came back, took another program, assisted Chris Nickel. Like you were busy, busy, busy. So burnout was, for people who don't do this on a regular basis, burnout is real. Burnout is my worst enemy, and it alternates between shooting photo and doing the show. So when the show burns me out, I hop back over with my camera. My camera burns me out, I focus again on the show. So I'm like lucky that I have things in the same realm, but they're two different. They involve two different aspects. But yeah, I can see it. I can see the burnout. Worked a little hard for a few years.
Yeah, a bit too hard. And then, COVID was sort of oh no, I can't do fashion photos in my house anymore because you can't have strangers over. Oh no, very much like it's fine. I'm gonna take the time. And I took about 5 years off from taking any photos of any consequence. So from late 2019 until 2024, I guess, I really, aside from taking photos on trips and stuff, I wasn't doing much of anything at all. But where I'm at now, I tried really hard to be much more conscientious of my relationship to this craft, to this practice, because even now there's times when I have to check myself and say, is this really what you want to be doing today? Or are you just doing it because you feel like you have to keep working at this? And reminding myself that you're doing this for you now. So, and that was really an important shift, is committing to doing it not for any sort of motivation aside from just doing it, and kind of just making friends in the photography world and making friends with like-minded creative people and connecting to the community. And I still want to make work that I'm proud of and that excites me, but I try to really be aware of how it's making me feel when I'm doing it.
And it's important to have those separations from, the work that you want to turn into your portfolio that brings you clients, and how to capture a moment while on the street and keep it as authentic and natural as possible while capturing the vibrance of the situation. So when you realize, like, okay, my camera sat for a while, is that what drew you to start hopping on the streets, start capturing what was around you on a daily basis, or were you already doing that?
I was kind of always doing it in the background. Street photography has always been sort of an interest. And if you scroll far enough back into my Instagram, because I really haven't deleted anything there, you'll find some older street photography work where you can see that I'm experimenting a bit with it. My approach has changed a lot. So the images have changed a lot, of course. But yeah, it's always been this like back burner thing where if there's nothing else to do, oh, maybe I'll just do a little street photography. And I was using my cell phone a lot, even when I wasn't taking photos. So for that 5-year period of not really doing any photography, I had my cell phone and I was doing a lot of that kind of photography where just out with the smartphone, taking photos of stuff and posting it on Visco. I don't know if you know that platform.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so posting stuff on Visco. I like the Visco filters. They're kind of just fun and no pressure. And it's not the same as with Instagram where you feel like it's kind of a brand. Visco is just very much like free form, flow of consciousness. I'll post 8 photos in one day, or whatever it may be, versus Instagram feels like you have to curate a little bit more, or the algorithms that be will punish you. So you have to be a little bit more thoughtful about how you do things on Instagram. But yeah, that's primarily what I was doing in my 5-year hiatus. what ultimately drew me back to street photography was needing an outlet to needing an outlet, point blank period. And this sort of ties into the zine that I made as well. So I don't know if we want to get right into that right now, or if you have more questions, but
I just love hearing the story, man. Just to hear and let the guest or the listeners hear the fact that, you know what, you did your program, Mount Kilimanjaro. You came back to another program, 4 years working for someone else, burnout, shooting with your phone. I mean, phones are still photography. You're still capturing moments. Yeah. And now, you know, we can talk about the process. What led you to build the book, or your zine, which is great, by the way. It's right behind me. And I love the personalized letter, the little postcard. It's up on the board there. Those little touches go a long way.
For sure, they do.
We can transition through, and I mean, you shoot primarily with film, correct?
Yeah, most of what is in Only Child is on film. Most of what I shoot is film. I have started shooting a bit more digital just because I can't be buying film at the rate that I'm shooting it. So I'm not one of those people that is, you know, dogmatic about you have to shoot film to do street, or you have to shoot film to do anything. I just whatever, and I'm not at all like that with gear either. It's very much, what do I have closest to me? What's in my hand? Because, you know, I don't look at a photo and say, oh, was that digital or film? Was that this camera? That it's just, does the photo work or not? Do I like the photo or not? Is it resonating with me? And I'm not really concerned with how someone shot it. I think there are times when I'm surprised to learn, oh, it was shot with an iPhone, but just because I think I never considered that iPhone photos can be blown up the way they can, but nowadays they can. So yeah, I'm very much not subscribed to the dogma that you have to shoot film, but I do like to shoot film, not because, okay, so I used to say that it slowed me down because that's what you're taught you're supposed to say about it. I don't find it slows me down. I find that I'm connected more to it just because in the last year, I've started doing my own developing at home. I've started working in the dark room, and I find that you get so much more, or I get so much more. This isn't for everybody. I understand that. I get so much more satisfaction out of having the extended life of a photo. So if I take a digital photo, I plug it into the computer, it's on Lightroom, I do some edits, it's done. That's the end of my time with that photo. I can print it, but I'm not really involved in that process. That's it. That's the end of the photo's life with me. It's relationship with me, versus if I'm developing the film, I'm spending, you know, at least a half hour or so mixing my chemicals, doing all that, letting it dry, scanning it myself here at home, and then I can take it to the dark room. I'm a member at Gallery 44 here in Toronto. So it's a artist-run production space. So I can go there, book darkroom time, and make contact prints. And just, again, it's another thing where I'm involved in the process of my photography and connected to that process in a way that I otherwise, in all the years I've done it, haven't really felt. So again, it's just, yeah, for me, that's really the main reason why I shoot film. And there are those moments where I'll shoot a really interesting photo digitally that I really like, and there's that little pang of, I wish I'd shot that on film, because then I could have so much more time with this. But again, it's one of those, it's back to the whatever you have within arm's reach, and whatever's going to work for the moment, you just got to go with. As far as what led to the making of Only Child and that zine, so the title is a bit of a misnomer. I'm not actually an only child. I was raised as an only child, but I do have half siblings out there in the world. And so making only child was a way of working through a lifetime of being known as an only child, and that there's always the joke of, oh, I can tell you're an only child because XYZ, and so getting those kinds of jokes, but then in the back of my mind being like, well, not really.
Well, I was just to connect with you on that point. I mean, I was an only child until I was 48, and now I found my birth family, and I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 on one side and 2 on the other. So lots of half siblings out there.
Wow. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to, there's lots of books about family dynamics, and there's lots of books and resources for more quote unquote traditional families. There's not anything like that for connecting with half siblings later in life, at least not that I know of. So yeah, I mean, I went through life with knowledge of my half siblings and knowing that they were out there somewhere. We share a biological father who I have no relationship with. The last time I saw him would have been 2001 at my uncle's funeral. And well, my uncle's viewing. And I remember standing there with him saying something to the effect of, oh, life is short. We should really get you to meet your half siblings, blah, 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 blah. That was 2001. So, that never materialized, but about a decade went by and I finally reached out to him and was like, hey, we're all older now. Maybe this is a good time. And he said, I've been too busy to see your half siblings myself, let alone introduce you guys, but let's me and your mom meet up and we'll make it happen. And then he pretty much ghosted me. So we had a day sort of set, and yeah, I was like, hey, are we meeting this day? And just no response and nothing, no anything. So that's the last time that I interacted with him directly. Yeah. And then another, I guess, 10 years or so went by, and I was like, up until that point, I hadn't done it just because I didn't know what they knew. If our biological father was willing to ghost me over this, I kind of figured that maybe they had no idea. And you're kind of doing the mental math of, okay, I'm this old, which means they're this old. This feels like a lot for a teenager to take on. I have a half brother who's 2 years younger than me, and 2 half sisters who are 8 and 11 years younger than me, I think. So, you're doing that mental math and thinking, okay, this maybe they're in their 20s now, at least. Maybe they can handle this. And so I reached out in 2022 to my half sisters because my half brother is sort of, he's kind of off the map. You can't really, there's no real way to get a hold of him. So I reached out to my half sisters, and yeah, we made contact. One of their responses was, no offense, but do you have any proof? Which, fair question, totally fair question. And I sent her the screenshots of the conversation that I'd had with our biological father, and that was enough proof. The other one was very receptive, but ultimately, for, I don't really know the reasons. Our relationships have kind of fizzled out. There was a lot of talk about being a part of each other's families now, and great that we've connected, and we have another sibling, and all the things you want to hear and that you've sort of dreamt about hearing and really hoped you would hear. And so that was a lot of the talk that was happening in the early phases. And yeah, it kind of phased out. I don't hear from either of them at this point. I've reached out a couple times to one of them and no response. I wanted to give one of them a copy of the zine, and I reached out to her and no response. But uh, that it's not easy. It hurts, but I also, I've tried to be, I don't really blame them, because ultimately there's one person to blame, and that's our biological father. And uh, all of my anger is directed towards him, and all of my negative feelings are directed towards him. And I don't, I think that if he had done the right thing at any point in any of our lives, things could have been different. But here we are. And he had opportunities, right? And they didn't know that I existed. So this was the first contact they had with me was me introducing myself to them, which is not the best way to get that news. It's a lot to handle, and to find out that your parent who has raised you has been lying to you all these years. That's something that I can't imagine going through. So again, I don't fault them for not wanting a relationship with me, or not being able to handle a relationship with me. I wish that we did have a relationship, and I hope one day we do. But
I can, man, I was 47 and found my half sister on Facebook. So I was adopted at 2 days old, and I was fortunate enough that my mom knew my biological mom's name. So I've known her name my whole life. And it started through an ancestry test, the ancestry.com I had on my desk for 2 years before I even opened it. And I'm one of those people that you'll look at something and you finally get so mad that you haven't done it, that you just instantly do it all mad and aggressive. You're like, ah. So I did it, sent it, and it took like 4 weeks before I got the email that my findings were up. So I was like, okay, cool. I looked. My wife, she jumped in and found a photo, and then did whatever super sleuthing women can do on the internet. And like, she's like, oh, look, here's this person on Facebook. Picture matches. I'm like, oh my goodness, how did you figure this out? And I remember then I saw a picture of my mom, and then I saw sisters, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go direct to my mom, because I don't know how much she's on Facebook. Because I mean, I'm a full blown adult. I have 6 children, a career, a house. Like, I'm fully established adult. And I was 47 years old. So I reached out to my oldest sister. She's Jennifer's 10 years old or younger than me. So I just reached out with like, hey, do you know my mom's name? And she's like, instantly responds. She's like, yeah, that's my mom. And I was like, looked at my wife and I said, do I just like pull the Band-Aid off slow, or do I just jump in? Because like you, I didn't know what they knew. I didn't even know if they had a clue about me. Right. So I'm sitting there going, do I just like throw some teaser questions out? And as my wife's talking, she's like thinking like, that's probably the best idea. Hit it slow. And I'm like, well, I sent it. And she's like, what do you mean? I was just like, I don't know how to tell. I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think she's my mom too. And then Jennifer came back and she's like, holy shit, this is happening. And wow. It turns out that my older brother or not my older, I'm the oldest, but the older of the half brothers had known for about 10 years. He had heard from his dad, and he had told Jennifer. And then my youngest brother got married that year. And at that wedding, all the siblings found out about me.
Oh.
And so it was like this crazy thing. And it's good. I mean, at the beginning, we were on the phone all the time. And then, I mean, that fizzled out, but we still chat. I went down and surprised them at a barbecue in Washington State last summer, because they all live all over the U.S. So they were all in town to just kind of do a family get together. So I went down and surprised them. I showed up at the barbecue, which was cool because it was the first time I got to meet 2 of my brothers in person. And yeah,
That's always a weird experience.
yeah, but it's like, it's one of those things, like, we all had established lives. We all had families. We all, we all have been married. My brothers are all career military, so they're busy. I talk to my mom. I should probably talk to her more, but I'm not, I don't usually reach out to people. So it's kind of like, whatever. I mean, I love seeing her and we talk and it's great. My dad, on the other hand, I talked to him. I found them both the same day. So that part was weird. But I talked to him once, got some of the history of my indigenous background, where we came from, which is weird because I was adopted in Oregon, but my territory is 2 hours away from where I live in Canada, in Vancouver here. So it's in Merritt, which is crazy to me. So it's a big full circle for me.
Yeah.
And then both the brothers were the same as you. You have proof? And I was like, dude, like, I can tell you right now, like, I am a full grown adult. I am minimum 10 years older than both of you, with an established life. I'm just letting you know I'm out here. If you want to be friends, cool. If you don't, that's cool too, man. I'm good. And then I heard from my dad once, and it's been 3 years. So I've only heard from him one other time. And that's fine. I mean, my aunts and uncles and cousins on my dad's side have all been fantastic. And if he doesn't want it, it doesn't. I mean, I didn't know him before that, right? I went 47 years without knowing him. I'm pretty sure I can do another 47 without having him around. So, but I feel you, man. I feel like I know exactly what that was like when you try to reach out to somebody, and it takes a lot.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, so the first time I FaceTimed with one of my sisters, up until that point, it was kind of just this like idea, and this sort of, this idea of being a sibling and everything. And the second that whatever, the camera turned on and I was kind of looking at her in the face, it was, everything kind of shifted in a weird way, where it's like, oh, this is real now. This is this is not just like some thing in your mind. Like, you've made this a real thing, and here we are. Yeah. And I'm, I do have an adoptive father, and he's my dad in all ways. I mean, he raised me from infancy to current day. So he's my dad, and I love him. And I don't feel like I missed out on anything in life. But yeah, there is a lot of, the only thing that I do feel like I was robbed of, and that my siblings were robbed of, was each other and having a relationship with each other. And there's a lot of anger, and I feel like it's a very cowardly thing to do, to run away from that responsibility. So yeah, I guess this is the long way around of sort of explaining where only child came from, because this was sort of what I've done in the last year, in sort of working my way through it. And this whole experience of meeting my half siblings and things sort of fizzling out, it left me feeling a bit, I don't know, not empty, but just needing something to occupy my mind, maybe, or just something to help process it. And so I started going out into the street again. And I went to, so I've been to Japan a few times to do street photography there. It's like it's where I discovered my love of street photography. And I went there in 2024 or 2023, somewhere around there, right after kind of all of this had very clearly dissolved. And just, I felt really good out there doing street photography, and just walking around with a camera and making something out of nothing. And so I came back from that trip wanting to do more of it here at home. And it was something that I'd never really done. I find Toronto is a really hard place to do street photography, to be totally honest, not because there's a lack of subject matter necessarily, just because people here are more aware of cameras and more skeptical of cameras than most other places that I've been in my life. There is kind of I wouldn't say an open hostility, but very clearly a discomfort and skepticism to people taking pictures on the street. And maybe that's just my experience because I have a giant beard and a bald head and people are suspicious of me already, but it is what it is. So I came back from that trip to Japan and was like, I'm just going to tackle these streets. I'm just going to go out and do it until I don't feel so uncomfortable doing it because I need to do it. And so from 2024, from like spring 2024 till April 2025, I shot and put together Only Child. And before I had any of the images laid out, sequenced, or selected, I knew two things that were important. I had the two anchoring points of that publication were the title and the dedication, and everything else was like going to fit into those two main anchoring points. What ended up taking the longest time for me was I knew I wanted to write something or have some writing to give context to what people were seeing. Because I look at a lot of zines where it's just, okay, we're right in, great, cool. Like we're just looking at photos. I don't understand why, but here we are. So my first draft of this zine had sort of a very sterile kind of artist statement type thing that gave context to what was in what you were going to see and what the photos were about. And I took this draft and I did a one-on-one consultation session with Ruben Radding, one of your guests. Yeah.
Mentioning Ruben, his show just took over the #1 spot about a week ago and is just skyrocketing. It's been it was a little slow in the beginning. He's an amazing, amazing person. And all of a sudden, I don't know where the shift is. It got into the algorithm and man, it is shot. He was like 9th most listened to. And then within a few days, he was far past the #1 show.
Yeah, I mean, well-deserved too. I think he's got a show on in New York right now, and so I see it on his story. It's in a subway or train station kind of thing. They've taken it over and turned it into this insane-looking photo gallery that I wish I could go see, but. Yeah, so maybe that's part of it. People are kind of getting interested in his work, and it's very well deserved though. So I did the consultation with him, and one of his pieces of feedback, among many other like just sort of let me start this over. A lot of the feedback he gave me left me with questions about my practice that I needed to answer and figure out for myself. And so I left that consultation feeling, in a good way, kind of feeling lost and going through a period of growing pain. But another piece of the feedback that he gave me was about that sort of written portion. And he said to me, it seems like you're trying to say something without saying it, like you're trying to sort of dance around it, and you either need to say it or not. And he also said, you don't need to write something like this. You can have something that's a complementary text to the document. So it took me a couple months to figure out what that would be. And I took a line from the beginning of that song because it felt like it applied to sort of what I was going through, and what like sort of it really did kind of anchor things in the same way that the title anchored things and the dedication anchored things. And it was kind of one of those like aha moments where the answer has just been sitting in front of you all along. So yeah, that's how that came to be. And then the photos, I was looking at the zine last night to prepare for this, and they are sort of, they're oddly like a, maybe not oddly, but they're this time capsule. There's what I've done since I'm really excited about. And not that I'm not excited about these, I can see my own progress, and I can see where I was when I took those photos, creatively, emotionally, and I can see where I'm at now. And so that's a really interesting shift as well. Yeah. And I think that what I was trying to say or show or whatever with Only Child, I don't think that's a finished document. I don't think that that's a standalone. It feels like it will be a series. I'm already kind of laying out another one, a volume 2, so it's working its way out in my mind, and to some extent in design. But yeah, that's the story of Only Child, and how I came and found street photography.
That's amazing. And we also have a mutual connection with the one and only Brian Brock.
Yes, we do.
You've enjoyed a few of his photo walks, and I find Brian to be a pretty interesting fellow, very, very much in love with the art, but it's not his everything. It's something you don't hear very often.
Yeah, I honestly, he just posted something about having reached 10,000 followers, and how the community in Toronto, the community he's built has reached 400 members. And I honestly, I don't know that I would have reached a point where I would have put out a zine if I hadn't taken a chance and gone to one of his walks, because that was one of the things that in 2024, when I came back from my trip to Japan, that was one of the first things I did was do one of his walks, because I wanted to do more. And I will admit that I've never really seen photo walks as something that I wanted to do. I always there's like I don't know, I had my own like internal prejudices about them, and I talked to a friend about it before, and I was like, should I do this walk? Like, walks are always like, I don't know, what do you do on a photo walk kind of thing? And she was like, just do it. Like, who do you think you are? And I was like, yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. And I'm so glad that I did it, because I've met a lot of great people. I've met a lot of friends and like-minded people, and it motivates and inspires me. I shout out the Toronto street photography community in the back of my zine, because honestly, I wouldn't have done it without feeling like I had that connection to something beyond me. And it's almost like that's always what I was looking for in doing photography, but didn't know it. So I was kind of always just lone wolfing it versus embracing community and embracing meeting new people and all those things that I've found to be so beneficial now.
It's amazing when you can find a community like that, where you feel supported, you feel seen, you feel like no matter what you do, that there's going to be people there to help you, help pick you up when you're down, help support the dream. And that's so important. I mean, we suffer as a generation, and as a people, we suffer with mental health issues like there's no tomorrow. I've shared my story. I've shared, it took me to 48 to find a therapist. 49, I got on medication, and I'm not afraid to talk about it and let people know. I grew up in an era, as a 50-year-old man, I grew up in an era where I can't show emotion. You don't cry. You dust yourself off and you do it again. I'm very fortunate with that mentality that I'm still able to communicate. I've had over 20 major concussions. And it's like, when I realized what I was doing to myself, it really started to affect everything. Like, I would be great for weeks on end, and then I'd wake up and, the triggers would be there. But in the beginning, I couldn't see those triggers. So I was like, it was like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of scenario. And it was one of those things where I never, ever, ever wanted to be that person. I wanted to, I always wanted to be open and show emotion and drive things in a different way. But in my era, when I growing up, it just wasn't a thing. So finding the camera after my skateboarding had to quit skateboarding because of injuries and all these outlets that I had for my own creative spark. The camera brought it all back. Finding the camera, that click of the shutter still is, it reminds me of rolling down the street on a skateboard for the first time. And I get that excitement still. How do you connect your creativity with your mental health and your day-to-day life? Oh man, I nailed that. That was like the best question, asked way version of that question. You got the fire question. Dang.
I'm glad that you said all that because it gave me a minute to collect my thoughts and figure out how to answer that. So meeting my half siblings did two things. It pushed me out onto the street doing street photography, and it also pushed me into therapy in the best way. It's something that I always wanted to do, but never actually just like pulled the trigger and did it. So yeah, I am a full-on advocate of people addressing their mental health issues, whether that be through psychotherapy or just whatever you can access that will sort of help you find some peace and clarity in your mind. And that's different for everybody, right? But I think for me, therapy has really helped me understand myself. I mean, that's not the most profound thing, but as far as photography goes, I have talked about photography and my relationship to it in many sessions. And people will sort of call it a hobby, and it's a lot more than that for me for a lot of reasons, but there is definitely a very direct link to my mental health and photography. It helps me in a lot of ways. I mean, it gets me out of the house for one. It makes every day feel more like an opportunity, even on days when maybe life feels like a burden. It gives it this flavor of optimism that, I can go outside and I might see something crazy today. I might get that crazy photo, that career defining photo that we're all out there searching for. And today could be the day. And so, yeah, I think the whole Only Child Zine project is kind of a testament to my relationship and between photography and mental health. A lot of me went into that, and a lot of thought went into that, and a lot of feeling went into that, and it still does. It's a big part of my mental health progress and journey, whatever you want to call it. I can kind of identify my struggle through photography. Any sort of latent issues I'm having do kind of come out through the practice of photography and street photography, and a lot of comfort, I guess, or maybe that's the wrong word. Catharsis maybe is a better word, can come through it. So yeah, I think that answers that question. Something that I've been struggling, and I mean, I've always struggled with this with street photography, but just fear. There is not a day that I go out that I'm not a little bit scared when I'm taking photos on the street. And whether that's because of any real threat or just something between the ears, that is a big thing that I've struggled with, and that street photography has really helped me kind of get comfortable with and overcome. I in the last few weeks I've started using flash on the street, which is fucking terrifying, but I'm doing it. I I kind of compare how I do street photography to when you're standing in front of a body of water that you know is going to be really cold and you have to jump into it. And it's that same feeling of like nothing in my body wants to do this, but I know that I'm going to do this. And it's just like making that decision to do it.
Man, that's an incredible journey. It's an incredible story. And, if you were to offer a room of people some wisdom and guidance of things you've learned over your journey, what would those words be? Dude, I'm on fire with questions today. I don't know.
You sure are. Yeah. You're a well-oiled machine over there. So first and foremost, because I've listened to a lot of your show, and so I kind of had a suspicion that this question was coming. My first and like most instinctual answer is use the library. And I know that sounds like that has nothing to do with any of this, but I have found more photographers and books and inspiration in going to the library and in borrowing books from the library. If you have a library in your town or city or wherever you are, use it, because you don't need to buy photo books necessarily. You can just go to the library and borrow them. And it's been so rewarding to, it's work, right? It can be looking at trying to find inspiration, and it's kind of a form of study. So I guess the piece of advice I have is don't forget about the back end of things, because yes, we all want to go out and shoot and we all want to take photos. But if you're doing it without that sense of like what excites you and where you're coming from and where you can go with it, if you're not sort of putting in the work on the back end, you're not going to get as much out of it. So that's really what I'll say. And yeah, for me, it's been going to the library, man. But I think that when I discovered the library, I didn't discover the library, but when I sort of was like, oh yeah, the library, I should check that out. It was like this, again, one of those things where it's this obvious thing that's been in front of you all along. And you kind of are like, does anyone else see this thing that's here? Like, you can just go in and look at every great photographer that's ever taken a photo and study their work totally free.
I have so many photo books. It's ridiculous. And I really need to make an effort to pick one up every weekend when I'm not overwhelmed and just browse the work of the masters. Because I find like without, it's probably been 6 months since I shot a photo for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of work on the show. I shot a wedding, which I hadn't shot a camera in months before that. So I just jumped in and shot it for a friend. But I miss the shutter. And when most of my time to shoot is weekends, and currently until at least January, I am slammed every weekend. It makes it hard to remember how important that camera is to my day-to-day life, which when I used to commute to work on my bike, I had my camera with me and you could see life. Whereas I commute in the car and I'm at work in 7 minutes. And, you aren't really you're not noticing the things going on around you. So just trying to find those balances again to make it all happen is so important to your creative spark and your spirit.
For sure. And actually, you saying that, another piece of advice I guess I would have for that room full of hypothetical people is be conscientious of your relationship to your practice. And, whether that's good or bad. Just be aware of how doing this is making you feel. And if you need to do more of it, do more of it. And if you are doing too much of it and your body is just telling you not to do it today, listen to that, because we are kind of in this pressurized environment of needing to constantly like create at all times. And there's some days where I just don't want to do that. There's some days where I just want to, I don't know, watch a movie or something. And there are ways to work on your craft without actually doing it. And that gets back to the previous point about the back end stuff, where there are ways to do things without picking that camera up. So, yeah, I mean, hearing you say that, if you feel like you need to go shoot, then hang up on me and go shoot.
No, it's Thanksgiving dinner, so house clean and make dinner.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've been finding other avenues to kind of keep the spark going. I've been really trying to get into commercials and voiceover work. And so I have my DJI action. But I'm just trying to shoot little things. Like I have a beautiful view of the sunset off my back porch. And I really want to work with a certain coffee brand. So I've been working on a little kind of like a video pitch deck just to kind of give them an idea of what I can offer them. Because coffee's expensive right now, and I don't want to pay those prices.
Okay, so now that you've brought up coffee, that is the family business that I'm in. So I need to say that, because I know people will listen to this, and if I don't address the fact that I work in the coffee world, people will be like, Tyson was talking about coffee. Why didn't you mention that you're a coffee roaster? And so anyway, I'm a coffee roaster. And
really? What's the name of the brand?
Everyday Gourmet Coffee Roasters.
Nice.
Family business. We started in 1979. And so we're in the St. Lawrence market, and I've worked there most of my life, and now I do all of our roasting and all of our online stuff. But I don't want this to be a plug for my business or anything like that.
Oh,
but
man, plug away.
You brought up coffee, and so it would be weird to like go and be like, oh yeah, interesting, and not say like I'm in that world. So yeah, coffee is expensive, and
I'm a coffee fan. So if you guys ever want to work together,
okay, I will
let me know, and I would love to help promote a Canadian brand.
All right, sounds great. If you're ever in Toronto, you know where to come get coffee, and I will take very good care of you.
Like I said, my plan is to come, and I really want to do a walk with Brian, record the whole thing, talk to the people who are experiencing it, and share those experiences with the world.
Yeah.
So
Toronto is in such a unique position as relative to street photography, because hasn't been a whole lot done here, at least not that I know of. And if someone out there has other information, please get in touch with me, because I have been searching for a sort of history of Toronto street photography, and there's very little to be found out there. Vancouver has some great street photographers. Greg Girard has shot there, Fred Herzog. I'm pretty sure Richard Sandler's living out there now.
In New Westminster, yep.
Yeah, so you guys are blessed out there, whereas, I can't find any sort of historical street photography. But it feels like right now we're in this place where there's all these people getting really interested in street photography, and every week that I go out, I see a new face with a camera, and sometimes we head nod, sometimes we don't, but like I just see more people out there doing it. So it feels like we're at this point where Toronto is kind of coming into its own in that sense. We're our community, our visual identity and culture is finding itself. So it's really, I'm really excited to be a part of it, and I'm really excited for how popular it's getting here, with some self-interest in mind, because maybe it'll make people less averse to having their photo taken in the street, and it won't be as scary for me. But also, like, it's just really cool to see the work that's being done here right now.
And the thing is, so if you hop on Instagram and look up Portrait Project 17, Ghost Portland, and Capturing Spokane. So Ryan, Tara, and my friend Ben, the work that they are doing with the unhoused communities in their respective areas. And I'm not talking just like a quick photo and run. I'm talking like story, connecting, being thanked by members of that community for helping them get clean. Like powerful stuff, right? So like I'm looking forward to going home to Portland and meeting up and doing a walk with them, because I've always felt like I'm a very intimidating figure. I'm quite tall, shaved head, big guy, and trying to walk up to people to take a photo, they instantly are defensive. Mm-hmm. And Ryan, Portrait Project 17, is shooting on a 28 mil fixed lens. So he has to be right in there to take care of this. So, take a look at them, take a look at their work. I think it's amazing. I think I just did a big thing on the Life of Phys page about them a couple days ago.
Okay, yeah, I've written that down to check out.
Yeah. Where's the best place for people to find you and grab your zine?
So you can find me on most platforms at Nick Spector, Spector. I'm sure it'll be in the show. I don't know why I spelt it, but yeah, it's at Nick Spector on Instagram. It's at Nick Spector on Visco. It's at Nick Spector on Photo. Those are the best three places to find me. I do have a few copies of Only Child left. If I still have them when this airs, there'll just be a link in my bio to get them. And if there isn't a link, you can DM me. I may have a few copies kicking around, but yeah, I did an initial run of 50, and those sold out, which I shout out to the Toronto street photography community, because it was cool because everyone that bought one, I at least like recognized and sort of knew them from something. And then I did an additional 25 to bring to the Montreal Street Photography Festival. So I still have a few from that left. So yeah, if you're listening and there's any available, you know where to find me. Also, just as a side note, another piece of advice I would have is, if you're making a zine or something in a small run, write something personal in it.
Yeah. I
did that for every single one of these zines that I sold, because it takes like, time-wise, it doesn't take that long. I mean, I tried to write something thoughtful for each person and something that sort of spoke to them individually, but I get zines sometimes that don't have anything in it. And it's like, I know you only did 75. You really couldn't write like 75, thank you 75 times. Anyway.
Personal connection.
Yeah, exactly. Personal connection. I think the only zines where I didn't write something inside were ones that people had bought from me on the spot. So we were at an event together, and they asked, "Oh, do you have any zines?" And yes, I do. But I feel like we already had a personal connection there, so in person. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, I've rambled on a bit here, but
it's all good, man. I truly appreciate it.
Everywhere.
I appreciated the personal note. Right, I'm very privileged that you sent me a copy for my personal collection. As I make a big banging noise with the side of my desk. And I'm looking forward to more, man. I'm looking forward to hopefully in the next year being able to plan out this cross-Canada trip to meet up with photographers and do photo walks in every city that I can stop in. So I've never seen the East Coast, so I'd love to make it out there, and then I can shoot down into Washington and New York, and then down to see my brother. And I have a brother in, I want to say one's in South Carolina, and one's in Philadelphia, and one's in, Carl's going to kill me. It's either Oklahoma or Kansas. It's one of the two.
Well, that's close enough.
Yeah. But it would just, I'm looking to do this over a multi-month run. So I want to build a Sprinter van next year and just slowly start transitioning to working and trips and everything out of the van.
Nice. Well, yeah, if you are coming through Toronto, hit me up, hit Brian up. I think the community here is very supportive, and we all love to meet new people. And I'm actually trying to do that in other places. So I'm leaving for Japan in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And I've reached out to a couple of photographers there, and I'm just realizing in the last year how important that connection is to feeling connected to what it is I do. I'm just trying to do that everywhere I go now. So yeah, a lot of positive responses. Street photography is in it as a genre feels kind of like a bit of a secret society in a way, because you'll see people on the street and you'll know that's what they're doing, and you kind of do the little head nod and you get the head nod back, and that's all there is. There's no other interaction, and it's just like, yeah, we're doing the same thing. I see you doing it, you see me doing it. And so yeah, just that kind of energy I'm trying to bring to wherever I travel to.
Amazing. Well, dude, it's been amazing. I've loved hearing your story and your journey. I look forward to watching you continue to build and establish yourself as Toronto's #1. Brian has some competition. But yeah, dude, keep me up to date. If you're doing another zine, let me know. I'll do what I can to help you promote it.
Thank you. I appreciate
and then
that.
Probably around this time next year, we'll do a follow-up and we'll see where you're at.
Sounds great. I anticipate there'll be a volume 2 of Only Child by then. Don't quote me on that 100%, but like probably. You heard it here first, everyone.
Yep. Oh. Amazing, Nick. Thank you so much, dude. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope today's conversation brought you insight, inspiration, or just a fresh perspective on the creative journey. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to follow, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. For updates, behind-the-scene content, and more, please follow us on all social medias at LIFE_OF_PHYS. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links and resources from today's episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living the life of creativity.